He's one of the hottest names in the mortgage industry. He is the founder and CEO of the hottest coaching company that supports mortgage loan originators. He's one of the best salesmen I've ever met. And he's my friend. And he's today's guest. This is an episode you won't want to miss. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children 18 plus, you are tuned in to the Loan Officer Podcast with me, Dustin Owen, and a very special guest back for the second time. He is my colleague. He is my friend. He's one of the hottest names in the mortgage industry. It's the one, the only Amir Syed. Amir, welcome back to the Loan Officer Podcast.
I'm going to play that every morning when I wake up right there. You know how to make a guy feel good, man.
Wouldn't that be awesome? I've always dreamt, and our audience probably has heard me say this 17 times over the past 4 years. I've always dreamt of like being at a point in my life where I could hire someone like a DJ to just follow me around and play walk-up music for me, because music sets the mood and sets the tone. That would be so cool, maybe to have like that intro with like a little DJ Khaled in the back and just pumping yourself up. All you're doing is like driving your daughter to dance, but that's going on. You're like, hell yeah, I'm the best dad ever.
What would be your walk-up song? What is that song for you?
I have several walk-up songs. You Never Met a Motherfucker Like Me by Kid Rock that's a little edgy. I sometimes go T.I., bring 'em out, bring 'em out, bring 'em out, like, you know, little T.I. Mm-hmm. If I was feeling melancholy, maybe I'd go like U2, Beautiful Day, or, you know, something like that. How about you? What are your go-tos?
Well, I threw a pattern interrupt at the Miami Association of Realtors about 6 months ago, D.O. I got fortunate to speak in front of like 3,000 of their agents, and they asked for the walk-up song. And I said, I want you guys to play either Coco Melon or Dancing Queen by ABBA. And because that's my daughter's favorite songs. Oh, and so they were thinking I wanted like Rick Ross or DMX, which is what I like. Yes. And so they cranked that when I went on stage, and everybody looked up and they thought it was a blooper. And I'm like, that's the walk-ups. That's for my daughter. And so all the parents went crazy.
So I love two things you said there. You said DMX and you said ABBA. Okay, well, because DMX, can you imagine, like, rest in peace, X, right? But him just barking, ow, 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 right? And then you're walking up or getting to a point in your life, you're probably there now with Go Coaching, where you could have hired X to, like, actually bring you out like that. And then ABBA, we used to play, like, early on in my career. This was, like, right before the financial meltdown. So, like, we knew shit was getting bad because our phones quit ringing. And we used to play office golf. And I'm not even going to get into the rules of office golf and how we played office golf, but this would have been like circa 2007, 2008. And when I was looking to make a really tough putt, which we played for money,
of course,
I would actually sing and chant, "Take a chance on life. You're the first in line."
Thanks. You got stuck on my head now.
I would literally, for whatever reason, my calming song that I went to was ABBA. Yeah.
Dude,
so
that's classic, man.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about today? Like, I would love for the audience to truly get to know Amir, the businessman, Amir, the loan originator. If you can go back 20 years for us.
Okay.
For that one, not senior originator today, but I want to like get to know you, because you have an amazing story.
Thank you.
And, you know, those that are part of your coaching community have probably heard the story. And anyone who's had the opportunities to see Amir speak the way that, well, I got to today, but, you know, now that we're colleagues, I'm going to get to see you speak probably so much. I'm like, oh, this story again?
I know.
This one again?
Here we go.
But yeah, I think you have an incredible story that, you know, throughout the audience getting to know you, the man, the businessman, they're going to be able to find some inspiration, maybe a little motivation. And I know you are going to drop a couple value bombs, as you like to call them, along the way. So if it's all right with you, if we fast forwarded to the 18-year-old high school dropout. Right. So son of an immigrant.
Yeah.
Immigrant.
I am an immigrant.
You are an immigrant.
Yeah, I'm an immigrant, yeah.
Not OG. I joke with my wife. My wife's family is actually the OG immigrants.
Okay.
In fact, they're the OG illegal immigrants.
They're the double OGs.
They're double OGs.
Okay.
The thing is, though, it wasn't that big of a deal, I guess, in the 1800s, especially if you're coming over from, like, you know, very Anglo-Caucasian Europe. But yeah, I was pointing out to her that, by the way, your family, because, you know, her grandfather, great-grandfather and great-grandmother both immigrated to the U.S. and both illegally. One from Norway, one from Ireland.
Ah.
Yeah. But you immigrated to the U.S.
Legally.
Legally. No DACA for you. No one's shipping you back.
No, I'm here. I'm here to stay.
Grew up in Chicago.
Yes.
Struggled in school.
Oh yeah. Mightily.
Weren't the best student. Obviously, you're bright, but weren't the best student.
Right.
English was your second language.
Yes.
Although you speak it perfectly fine today, so you got something right going on in school.
Sales is my first language.
Sales is your first language. Let's start there.
Okay.
Tell us more. What do you mean sales is your first language?
Well, okay, so my mom and dad and I immigrated to the U.S. in 1985. I was born in Tehran, Iran, and Iran and Iraq, neighboring country, had an 8-year war. And so in 1979, a lot of people know there was the revolution where the Shah of Iran, was overthrown. And then from 1980 to 1988, Iran and Iraq had this crazy war, and 1 million people estimated died from that war. And so my uncles were all coming back from war, post-traumatic stress disorder. In the apartment building we were living in Tehran, which is the main capital, there was bombs going over our head. I mean, I remember. And we just said, you know what? We got to get out of here. And so my mom and dad left their entire extended family. And mind you, my dad was born in Pakistan.
Okay.
And India and Pakistan had a civil war in the 1940s and 50s. My grandfather on my father's side was a prisoner of war for 4 years. My father was the eldest of 4 siblings.
Okay.
He had to leave Pakistan and go to Iran in the 70s because Iran was thriving economically, working and sending money back to his mom, my grandma, to support his siblings.
Wow.
While my grandfather was a POW, right? And he was a high-ranking in the military. And so my dad had to flee twice, right? So then he met my mom. Then war started in Iran in the 80s. So they packed up. They went to London, very expensive. Moved to San Francisco, very expensive. And then they had a distant relative, friend in Chicago. My grandfather on my mom's side, the town I'm originally from in Iran, is world famous at the time for horse breeding and horse racing, thoroughbreds. And so a lot of Irishmen and Brits would come to this town to basically, race horses. And my grandfather on my mom's side was a legend. Loved to gamble, loved to drink. And like a lot of guys would go to his house and he just loved my grandfather. His name was Rahim. And one of the most famous thoroughbred traders was in Chicago. And so my mom reached out to him, and my mom was the only one in her family that spoke English. So she would translate for my grandfather with all these Irish guys and Brits. And Mr. Burgle is his name. God rest his soul. He passed away, but he loved my family and he loved my mom. And he goes, Jasmine, that's my mom's name, come to Chicago. I owe your father 1,000,000 favors. I'll get you guys set up.
No way.
Yeah,
what a cool story.
Yeah, man. And so my mom couldn't get a job in McDonald's, in San Francisco. And so my dad, and my mom came to Chicago. I was 5, 6 years old. Dad was a shoe salesman making $3.75 an hour. Mom couldn't get a job. We're living in a 600 square foot apartment. I don't really speak English. Very difficult, right? Imagine the pressures, no family, nothing like that. My dad started selling cars because all Persians, Iranians, either you're like an astronaut or a rocket scientist or a doctor or attorney, or you're like a small business owner.
Okay.
There's no in between, right? So
there's no construction jobs for you.
No, it's either you're like a super Nobel Peace Prize winner or you're hustling cars or something, So a bunch of Persian guys told my dad you should sell some cars. So my dad would buy cars, fix them up, sell them outside the apartment building, would make a few bucks, and then he put them in the classified sections back in the day. Mm-hmm. Then he had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars out. They had a little mini car dealership outside in the parking lot of the apartment building. Neighbors started calling and complained. And my mom's like, okay, you're doing really well with car sales. We got to go get a car dealership. So my dad went, and there was all the Persian guys supported my dad. And there was a little dealership in Wrigleyville in Chicago, 3800 North Ashland Avenue for anyone that's a Chi-Town guy. It's blocks away from Wrigley Field. Well,
today, prime real estate.
Okay.
40 years ago, 30 years ago, not so much.
That's exactly right.
Correct.
In the 80s and early 90s, Wrigleyville was terrible. And so they were like, my dad's name is Hassan. They're like, this is a very rough area. No one can make this dealership work. He killed it there because till this day, when someone says, used car salesman, I get it. It bothers me a little bit because my dad became a used car salesman. He would have people traveling from all the Midwest to buy cars from him.
Wow.
Because, I want to give a shout out to my dad. He's a legend. People's transmissions will go out 6 months later, and they bring it back. He goes, don't worry about it, I'll take it back. He gave him another car. All the bus boys, chefs, the Latino community started coming to him because he's just super, super honest. So there was these big car dealerships by him, Burt Wyman Ford, Mazda, all there. They would get so mad at my dad because he's just moving used cars. Like every day he's moving cars because his service was amazing. And he would always tell me, so you asked how I learned business. I sucked at school. We moved 4 times growing up. I was bullied. I hated school. You know, I got slight learning disability. I just moved around a lot, traumatized, right? Moving around. And finally, my dad had this small business and he said, you know what? You're really bad at school. He goes, but you're my son. He goes, you got to work, man. He goes, you're getting into too much trouble. So every Saturday morning I was at the car dealership and I first learned how to be a porter at 14. I learned how to buff cars, how to detail cars. And I was there working all day. Then summers I was there 6 days a week because the car dealership was open from 9 to 8. I started to become a running credit at 16.
Okay.
So he had an old school TransUnion credit report machine in the back. So back in the day, people had their social security numbers and their IDs. So he taught me how to read credit. He goes, okay, this person came in, go run the credit. I put everything in and then a print out. And if I saw straight ones back in the day meant everyone's making their payments on time. I would go back and I would tell the salespeople, hey, this guy's got good credit. I became a man at 17 years old, okay? My father went back to the Middle East for a month. And he had to visit some family. And he said, son, he goes, you're in winter break. You're going to sit at my desk. And he said, you're going to do your best to run the dealership with these 4 salespeople. Yeah.
Little empowerment there, huh?
My father, and you're right in lockstep with me. He gave me so much confidence at a young age that I go and I have lunch with him. I'm like, it's crazy how much confidence you gave to me. You gave me so much autonomy at an age, right? Like, I'm really just grateful for that, Dad. So the first day, a Ecuadorian chef comes in, okay? Sal, the salesperson, I'll never forget Sal. He's out there. The guy's looking at a 1993 white Nissan Altima. You know how you and I were talking offline? Like, we don't remember like the most important things, but we remember like people's FICO scores.
Yeah,
and stuff.
I can't remember what I did for, true story, I cannot remember what I did for Christmas last year. My wife, Michelle, last night was like, well, you remember last year we were at your sister's house, we were playing these games? I'm like, nope, but I can tell you what Jim Smith does for a living, and I did a loan for Jim back in 2010. Yeah, right. So like you're that way with this car.
I remember 93 Nissan Altima, 4-door white.
Okay.
And Sal's out there negotiating. I'm at my dad's desk, and we would buy all our cars from the local car auctions. Mm-hmm. A lot of the cars came from large rental car companies, so they would just dump their inventory, and all the used car dealers would go there and bid. Right, and all the Persian guys would go to the same car dealerships, and they would know which cars would bid really well, and they would play a game of sticks. So whoever pulled out the longest stick would get to bid on the car, and everyone would back away.
Oh, no way.
So they just don't overbid on each other. So my dad, had a little bit of a crew there, and they would just support one another. So he would buy the car, and the auction would give a green sticker or like a bill. And I'd see my dad's writing what he paid for it and then what he invested as far as a body shop, mechanic shop. And he goes, this is what we're all in on this car. You have to add 8.75% for sales tax, title, registration, and everything. We have to pay the car salesman this much. He goes, so we're all in this. This is why we're listing this property for this so we can make X. Mm-hmm. So I saw all his handwriting because I knew all the math, right? Sal comes in. He goes, this guy's got a bag of cash. He's in the restaurant business. Amir, he only wants to pay $8,000 cash for this car. We were already in like $7,800. And I'm like, I can't believe this guy's asking me this. What kind of shop is my dad running here? Like typical small business winging it, right? Like, and I'm like, I'm like sweating. Literally, I remember to this day. It was cold out. Sal's going back and forth. He goes, what do you want to do? I'm like, Sal, why are you asking me? He goes, your dad said it's got to come. He goes, I'm like, and I'm sitting there. And I said, you know what? Move the car. I want every single license plate in the city of Chicago to say Ashland Motors, right? Because when you buy a car, I go, just units, move the units. Sold it. My dad called every night. He goes, son, how'd it go today? I go, Dad, and I asked my mom. I was like, you'll be fine. I said, Dad, today was good. It was this happening. I go, you know that 93 Nissan Altima? He goes, yeah. The one we're asking like $9,800 for? I go, yeah, Dad. And he goes, get to the point. And I told him, and he got quiet. He goes, okay. He goes, how do you feel about your decision? I said, Dad, I feel really, really good. 6 months later, I'm pulling in from high school. I have my license now, 18 years old. I'm pulling in. I see my dad with the same gentleman that bought the 93 Altima getting in a 96, 97 Lexus ES300. And my dad's hugging me, and I'm going, and he goes, son, this guy has referred 6 people to buy cars. I bought that car really at a good price. I'm still underselling the market, and we made 10 grand on that car.
Wow.
And I said, Dad, he goes, I'm so proud of you. You understand the rule of sales. Take great care of people and move the units. Some you'll make money, some you don't. That was when I became a man.
You learned that at 17.
I learned that at 17 years old.
So here's something really cool, because this show, although it's not specifically designed for mortgage loan originators, which is a little bit odd because the name is the Loan Officer Podcast, right? But it truly was like, I set out to be like, no, I'm kind of like, what would happen if Joe Rogan and Dave Ramsey had a baby? And all I wanted to do was teach the shit they don't teach us in school, and that is essentially everything I learned because I became a loan officer. And your story took me back to 2004 when I'm coming into the industry, right? I'm a 25-year-old rookie loan originator who had spent 2 or 3 years out of college selling TV advertising. So I had some sales background, and one could say I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. But what I learned early on, and for those that originated prior to Dodd-Frank and LO compensation, we can remember the good old days. And I just did an episode, John and I dropped, which was essentially titled something along the lines of, will Elon Musk shut down the CFPB? And in that, I may or may not have got on my soapbox of LO compensation rules and how our industry violates them, in my experience or humble opinion, and how if I had it my way, we would go back to the way things used to be, right? Because the way things used to be, bad news for the loan officers who didn't originate, we made less money. For the consumers, they got better deals. But here's what I loved about it, and here's where I'm going to tie it into your story about becoming a man at 17. I learned then at 25, I would do a loan where I would erase all of my commission just to get the loan in the door.
Right, there you go.
Because to me, whether I funded 6 or 7 units that month didn't matter. Whether I funded 4 or 5 units didn't matter. I'd already done most of the work, right? I did the pre-approval. I had all the docs. I'd already run credit. Now I literally just have to lock it, disclose it, and turn it over to processing. But I was at least experienced enough, which I was very inexperienced at 25, but I was experienced enough to understand this. Well, I do a good job, which I trust I'm going to. That realtor is going to be like, oh, he does a good job. She's going to be more willing to refer me. If I let that loan walk out the door, well, she has no idea if I can do a good job. If I do a good job, there's a chance that person may refer me. There's a chance that person may come back to me. If I get to do that loan, there's a listing agent on the other side. And it was at which point I was like, yes, what you learned at 17, I learned at 25, get the loan in the door, because it's not about the game of checkers, as you like to say. Right. It's the game of chess.
That's right.
I wasn't trying to do one loan. I'm trying to do 100,000 loans. I'm not trying to be successful 1 year. I'm trying to have a 30-year career where I've been successful.
That's right.
And that mindset is one that we all need to take into it. So for those originators, or more importantly, those branch managers, because you and I spend a lot of time coaching branch managers. I'm inviting branch managers to come work with you and I, hey, come be our colleagues. Come join us at Lower. Let us coach you. But I'm going to tell you, if I'm coaching you and your loan officer comes to you with a pricing exception, I'm going to tell you, approve it. 9 times out of 10, approve that pricing exception.
Smart.
Get your LO paid. Get that unit in the door.
Get the confidence.
Yes. Well, I mean, a paid LO is a happy LO. We'll start there. A paid LO is a happy LO. A happy LO is a lot easier to coach than an unhappy LO. So I can get more out of it, but I'm going to trust that a good manager won't have an LO that they do 5 out of 5 loans or pricing exceptions. So it's interesting to hear your story from 20 years ago and how it may have correlates to my story from 15 years ago, but even correlates today for how we operate our business. So that was you at 17. How'd you find yourself into the mortgage industry?
So at 18, I had graduating high school. At the time, I had a 1.7 GPA. And the school I went to, how I ended up moving from one town to the other. In 6th grade, I got into a really bad fight. I was hanging out with the wrong kids, and I came home with a black eye. And my mom said, what happened? And I said, I was just playing basketball. And, moms know when you lie. Or wives and moms, they're like the FBI. You ain't getting around them, right? Well, she called up to the 3rd floor. I was best friends with a kid on the 3rd floor in their apartment building, Charlie. And she talked to the mom, and the mom shook Charlie and said, what happened with Amir? And he said, he got into a really bad fight. And Mom, he shouldn't go to the school dance tonight because the kids that he got into a fight with are not good kids, and they're doing something really bad to Amir. And so she told my mom, and Mom's like, you're not going to that dance. Well, a few days later, I found out those kids brought like knives, and they were really bad people. And so my mom told my dad, we need to change this kid's reference group, right? She didn't know what that meant, but she's like, we need to get in a different environment. So they said, we're going to go to Wilmette, Illinois. And if Wilmette, Illinois the North Shore Chicago is a very wealthy area. Okay. And so it was only 1 mile over from the town I was living in. So we went and we finally bought our first home in 1992, really modest home for $290,000. My parents saved a lot of money to go there. And I remember 7th grade, I went from, living in a certain way. And now these kids, no one fought. Like these kids are like, going to Aspen for like spring break. And we went to Wisconsin Dells, man. I don't come from much, and these kids start thinking differently, moving differently. And I start to change. And my best friend, Danny, brought me to church because I was a really good basketball player. And he goes, dude, we have a church league. I'm like, church? Wait a minute, dude. Like, are you going to like brainwash me? Right? And he goes, no, trust me. So he goes, come with us. We went there and my life changed, man, through the church, youth group and everything. I was around really good people. And fast forward, his uncle is a very well-known former Fortune 500 CEO. He's on the board of 22 different companies today.
Okay.
Shout out Dennis Chikazian, my first real mentor. And so he and my mentor, Mr. Reardon in high school, they worked together and they, really endorsed me. And Mr. Reardon, I think to this day, graduated me, right? And he looked at me.
Like he pushed you through. He made sure that you showed up, you took the test, you got the grades, and one way or the other, we're going to get you a diploma.
Because when I was in that high school, I had a big inferiority complex. These kids all got money, they're educated, and I felt like a second-class citizen. I always had this chip on my shoulder. It was 98% like white. There's like me and like a few Indian kids. And like we didn't have much money, and these kids' homes were just massive. It was just very like I just always felt less than. And I didn't do good in school. But Mr. Reardon knew me and my parents. He was my homeroom counselor, and he graduated me. And when I met Dennis, he said something to me at his house. And Dennis lives in a multi-million-dollar home, has 20 cars, right? And he's super humble. He mentored me, right? And he goes, Amir, the most successful people at my company, which has 30,000 employees, are the executives and the salespeople. And I was like, salespeople? He goes, they make multiple 7 figures a year. The most important skill in life is sales. And this is a Fortune 500 CEO in his $15 million home on Michigan Avenue in Wilmette, okay? Very, like my mentor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy's on the board of Kellogg, the board of University of Chicago Booth, like super smart guy, right? I said, selling? He goes, everything is sales. He goes, you don't need a college degree. He goes, don't worry about college. He goes, you have a gift of gab. He goes, study sales. And that was all I needed to hear. Just one little word, right? So all these kids are going to great schools. I'm in college for like a short period of time. We're in real estate finance deal. The irony, okay? I'm sitting next to 2 Middle Eastern kids that we assimilated. One of them starts coming into class with a suit on. And I said, Ed, why are you wearing a suit? He goes, I'm an account executive at a bank. I said, what is that? He goes, well, the bank I work for is World Savings Bank.
Okay.
And I said, there's a savings bank for the whole world? He said, no. Is this what it's called? I work with mortgage brokers. I have a product that they like. Option arm. Right? And I said, okay, can you just explain to me in a simple way? He goes, you would kill it. You would kill it, Amir. He goes, I'm working part-time until I graduate. It's 2003. He goes, you're so good with people. I said, but I don't know anything about loans. He goes, we're in real estate finance. I go, exactly. I suck at this class. Yeah. I go, I don't understand it. He goes, it's all people business. I said, put me on. He goes, you sure your dad's going to be okay with that because you work for your dad and your dad wants to wants you to take over the business?
Oh, did your dad want you to take over the business?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, I thought he did. I mean, yeah. So listen to this. Finally, I said, Ed, just give me a couple weeks. I am so nervous. I lived at home until I was 27, Dio. Right? I was the only child for 13 years. Like in a Middle Eastern family, like, it's a different upbringing, right? It's like your dad's a general, like you do what he says. Like we're eating breakfast Sunday morning and I'm so nervous. I remember till this day, my mom is like, are you okay? And I said, Dad, I got to ask you something. I said, I don't know if I want to take over the business. I don't like the car business. It's a grind, and I said, I want to try this mortgage business. And man, again, my dad said, you should do it. He gave me such wings. And I remember like, 1,000-pound weight.
You're 18 years old.
I'm 19, 20 years old at the time, right? This is like my first year in college, like barely did it, right? And he goes, what is his position? I told him. He goes, do you remember, Amir, when we would always have lunch on Fridays and we drive by that Washington Mutual and you'd always ask me, why are there such nice cars in the parking lot? I said, yeah. He goes, that's a mortgage company. I said, those guys with the nice cars are what I'm going to be doing? He goes, yes. He goes, those guys do really well. He goes, you should go do it. He says, you need to work for somebody else.
Yes.
And I said, okay, Dad. So I called Ed. I said, Ed, put me on. He goes, I got you. These two guys that left AmeriQuest, they were the two top sales guy at AmeriQuest, big mortgage company.
Yes.
They were looking for young sales guys. He put the word in for me. He goes, all right, call the guy. His name is, I got to give a shout out to my boy KT, Kevin Taylor. He goes, he's interviewing a new telemarketer. Dio, I call this guy. Picks up. I'm thinking this guy's like a 50-year-old guy, right? Owns a company, mortgage company. Owns a mortgage company. I got Mr. Taylor. It's Amir Syed. I'm Ezra. He goes, you can just call me Kevin, man. I go, okay, are you sure? He goes, yes. He goes, I hear you're really, really a good kid, a hustler. I said, I think so. He goes, can you come on Friday at 1 o'clock for an interview? I said, no problem. I go, Friday at 1 o'clock. I said, that's lunchtime. I had just read a quote in my Chandler's Assignment notebook. You know, they used to have quotes on top. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I go, how about I bring you some lunch? He says, no, I'm good. I go, no, I insist. He goes, no. I said, okay, no problem. I'll see you Friday at 1. I'm broke. I have no money. Like, my dad wasn't paying me. He's like, you're working for free. He goes, you know what? I said, Dad, I need a suit. I got this interview. He goes, it's the first of the month. The laundry machines at our apartment buildings, you can get some quarters from it. Here's the keys. Whatever you collect from those laundry machines, take those quarters to First American Bank. Whatever you get, you can buy your suit. I went. I got $312 in quarters. Went to First American Bank, got the money, went to Golf Mill Mall, bought the most ugly DKNY suit with a shirt, bought some Kenneth Cole shoes.
It wasn't ugly at the time.
I thought I was pimping.
Correct.
Man.
I was going to say, at the time, I bet you felt like you were it.
I was like, yes. I'm making $1 million just right now after taxes, right? Yeah. I go to Nuna Kebab, which is my favorite Persian restaurant. I order 5 platters of shish kebab. Go to MapQuest, put it in the front seat. I'm like, I'm bringing all these guys lunch. I open the door. It's like 4 guys in a little 1,000-square-foot office. I'm like, they're like, yes, can I help you? I'm like, I'm here to see Mr. Taylor. They all burst out laughing. I'm like, I brought you guys lunch. Go in. I got the job. We're walking out. KT's like, you didn't even ask me, like, what are you going to get paid? I go, dude, I'll do whatever it takes, man. I go, are you guys like, what do you guys do? He goes, we cold call homeowners and refinance their mortgage. I go, so I'm going to make telesales. He goes, yeah. I go, I'll start. I started Monday. They put me next to, shout out Michael Banks. I went home and I cried in my bed that night. This is the first time I'm actually saying this out loud, I think, ever. I was like, this is impossible. I don't understand rate sheets. What is happening right now? These guys are talking 100 miles per hour. And I went home. I drove home and I had my little bedroom. And my mom was like, are you okay? She knocked on the door. And I'm like, I'm good, Mom. And she knew, right? Yeah. Mama knows. And I came out a couple hours later because she always make me dinner. I said, Mom, I'm such a loser. Like, I said, man, like, I'm just, I have no college degree. It just brought me back, man. It's just crazy me talking about. I'm like, all these kids are in good schools. All these kids are like, like I'm just, again, I'm a loser. Like, I can't do this. This is going to be so hard, I said, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to go work for Dad again? Like, it was just very visceral at the time. And she said, it's one day at a time, man. And I went back the next day and I showed up and I was just tough again. I mean, mortgage business is hard, man. Yeah. We make it look easy after a long time. And it was all these like rate sheets everywhere, dude. And these guys are just selling and slanging. And I just said, okay, let me start. And I'm getting rejected after every single cold call. But one thing with me, dude, I'm consistent, man. Like I don't stop, right? I became the #1 telemarketer. They end up having like 300 LOs in a matter of a year. Dude, I'm cold with it, dude. I'm like, scripting and selling I mastered it. I mastered the art of language, tonality, what to say in the first 15 seconds. I got so good, dude. I hope some of my boys from back in the day will watch this because they'll attest to it. Justin will attest to it. He's seen me in action many times. I would come on the floor because I ended up becoming the top manager there. And I'd say, hey, make the phones ring. Whoever says hello, I'm taking the application. And if I take the application, you guys will get it because we're going to have a putt off. We have a little putting green.
Okay.
Right?
I like this.
So it would ring. I learned how to say, hi, how are you, in 20 plus different languages with perfect pronunciation because Chicago is very diverse. So I knew the last name. If it was Ananapolis, it was Greek. I knew Nigerian, Ghanaian, Iranian, Chinese, Korean. I knew how to build trust within 15 seconds. If I heard a little bit of an accent, I knew how to say, hi, how are you in their language. So right off the bat, I had the affinity. And then I would speak with so much emotion. I'd say, my name is Amir, right? I'm a local lender. I think it's highway robbery that you're paying 8%. You don't deserve that. I come from a hardworking family. I know you're a hardworking family. I said, there's no way you should be paying 8%. I'm here to help you. I only call a few homeowners a day. We're going to lower your monthly payment. That's exactly what I would say. Assumptive, emotionally charged. And I felt it. I was convicted around it. I'm like, why are these people paying 8%? They would say, you're right. I say, do you have 15 minutes? I go, in 15 minutes, I'm going to get some information from you, and I'm going to need 24 hours, and I'm going to see how I'm going to help you. It's time that you start saving money. And boom, we get right into it. And I had a whole just like choreographed, like Shakespearean sequence of how I would get their information.
Any of this taught to you, or is this the product of going home after day one, feeling like I'm a loser, I'm going to quit, but not quitting? You didn't quit. You showed up on day two. You kind of endured. You suffered through. And is this what you learned by doing, or did you have someone come in and say, hey, at least follow this framework?
I learned a lot of the sales in the car business when I was in high school. It was my second education. I always joke I had a 1.7 school GPA, but I had a 4.0 street GPA.
Yeah.
And I saw my dad and the sales guys, how they would build rapport and affinity with all different types of people and then come to dealerships. So it just naturally, I learned it, right? When I got into the mortgage business, I just observed these guys. But I've always been obsessed, Dio. Like that's how Go Coaching spawned, is I always would take time to create playbooks. I would write down my scripts, right? And I would study it. There was no YouTube back then, right? I didn't really read a lot back then. But I just think naturally I had it, but I just paid attention a lot, right? And I listened to what evoked people, and I would just practice and practice and practice and practice, and I got good.
Yeah,
you know. But I think most importantly, what can't be taught, my heart has always been in the right place. I truly, till this day, like when I sell, it's from a place of pure conviction because I'm like, this is the right thing for this person.
Yeah,
you know, and so people felt that. You know, and I knew how to harness my emotion with the right wording and the right sequencing. And I would get people social. I knew what words to say, what words not to say, how to change my tonality, right? And I would get to social. I would give it to Renee, Kevin's sister. She'd flex the credit, right? And I'd be like, Renee, that's going to be a 640 FICO score. And she's like, dude, that's like, I would know.
Yeah.
Then I would come back the next day, write my 5 benefits, call them back, right? And I would sell it, give it to her. She create the documents, put it in a manila folder. I go to MapQuest, drive to their home, go over all the loan documents. They sign it. I come back, give it to the processor, get the conditions from the borrower, and close. And that was my introduction to the mortgage business. And honestly, it's been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me career-wise, because the mortgage business and the 20 years that we've been doing it, plus like, it's not even the mortgages, man. It's just like the ability to sell at a high level.
Yeah. You know what I love about it? And you just reminded me again of like going back almost 20 years when you're talking about it's not selling when you feel it, right? It's just you're doing the right thing, right? You feel it in your core, in your heart, in your soul. And I remember coming out of college, my degree is in advertising and public relations. I moved to Atlanta, work like you do, a $23,000 a year job as an assistant to an AE because I have no experience. Then I leveraged that for a job down in West Palm. Now I'm going to be the AE, but I'm like doing street sales, like knocking on, really your dad would have been my client. I would have walked in that dealership trying to sell him TV advertising.
We had those guys.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Radio guys too.
Oh yeah. Radio, TV back then, print, billboard, yellow pages.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like used car lots. It was attorneys and flooring companies like that. That was like where you wanted to go. But I remember one day, and the guy's name is Tim Devaney, and he was my local sales manager at WFLX, Fox 29 in West Palm. And Tim says to me, he overheard me selling, but I wasn't selling TV advertising. I was trying to launch a brand new fantasy league, and I was selling my friends on playing in this fantasy league. Now, you got to think this would have been 2003-ish. So fantasy football is nothing like fantasy sports is today. We had just gotten off of like keeping score on paper to now we're keeping score on like CBS Sports. And he's like, Dustin, if you could just sell advertising the way that you sell everyone that you talk to, I'm sitting outside of his door on fantasy. And you know what I said to him? I go, well, I believe in fantasy football.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I had fun.
Yeah.
Like, that was enjoyable. I loved and still love being a part of, like, that type of game and camaraderie and community. And that was, I had an epiphany. I didn't love or really believe in what we were doing at TV advertising, at least at that particular station group. My calling then later came in mortgage industry, and I fell in love, because selling mortgages is way easier than selling TV advertising, because I'm not selling mortgages. Never once are you and I going to wake up and convince someone to go buy a house.
Correct.
We're not going to convince them to refinance their current mortgage.
Correct.
So if I had to sell myself to a real estate agent or a home builder or a financial advisor who, regardless if they want to admit it or not, they need us and we need them.
No doubt.
And then all of a sudden I just had to help people. I'm like, oh, well, now if I'm speaking to you, oh yeah, I'm speaking with conviction and passion and excitement, but it's all about helping you become a homeowner because I believe in the power of home ownership. I loved what you said, talking about, you selling and feeling the conviction and how it was just so easy and natural to you. If I was going to do a bit of a takeaway or a tie down for the audience tuning in, it's like, look, whatever you're doing for a living, right? Whatever it is, make sure you're so passionate about it that you never feel like you're selling, right? You never feel like you're selling, that all you're doing is helping people, but you believe in your product, you believe in your service, therefore you never have to sell.
And you have to detach from the outcome, right? Like since day one, man, like that's something like it takes a lot to become ultra successful. And part of it is like living below your means. I lived at home till I was 27. So I was able to just like not have major financial pressure of like having a wife and kid and this, that. So like when I was selling, I'm like, I got $500 in expenses a month. Like
a bad month did not derail you.
No, I can really come in here and just like really understand my craft, right? And you have not made it in any sales industry until your milestone, I believe, is when you actually talk somebody out of buying your product. And I did that at a very, very early stage, right? Where people would come to me and I say, you know what, I don't think this is the right product for you. I don't think this is like what we can support you with. I really think like you can go back to your bank and get this. Yeah. And I remember like my first mortgage company, the guys would make fun of me. They're like, dude, like, cause we were floor, they would hear everything. They would listen cause I was selling and singing, right? And I'm like, dude, you gotta have a conscience, man. Like the sales gods, like they don't forget addresses, man, like karma. Like I believe in that.
Yeah.
And so I was able to work very happily. I was able to work with conviction because I didn't go out and buy homes and cars and all that. And I did try to buy my first record month I had. I went home, Dio. I'll never forget. I was living at home and I brought my paycheck home. And those days you're making crazy money in 03, 04, 05. And I bought a Mercedes-Benz CLS 500 brochure because one of the guys had gotten that car. And these guys were killing. I'm the number one guy at this company, still driving a used Jeep Cherokee, right? Which is this nice car. These guys are killing it, buying homes and this. I went home. My mom and dad are in bed watching TV because I'd get home at 9:30. And I'm like, Mom, look my check. She's like, wow. My dad's like, are you guys doing things legally over there? I'm like, I think. Yeah. And I'm like, Dad, I got to ask you for something. I want to get this car. And dude, he got so upset. He didn't raise his voice or anything. He's like, you're living downstairs in your parents' home. You're going to pull up in a Mercedes? He goes, son, long-term minded. He goes, you're going to buy property first. Don't be like these schmucks. And I tell you, if I didn't have my parents, they were my bumper guards, I would have gone and bought a nice car. So fast forward like about 6 months, my dad's like, how much you got saved? I think at the time I had like 40 grand saved. He goes, wow. He said, when you get 50, let me know. I said, okay. I got 50. He goes, all right. He said, it's easy to make money. You'll always make money, son. He goes, you're a hustler. He goes, you got to tell me how you're going to keep the money, right? He said, when you save 250 grand, let me know. I said, why? He goes, you're going to buy an apartment building, right? And so I said, okay, I'm going to save. I had a goal. I like do well with like a target number, right? Even my personal trainer knows, like, don't tell me to lift until like fatigue, whatever he says.
Yeah,
right?
give me a number. Yeah.
I want a number, and so I go get it and I count backwards because it makes this thing easier. So I saved $250. I saved every penny. My friends were going out on the weekends. Dude, I was a machine. I would go on Saturday mornings. I would pray for it to rain. Okay. I said, I'm going to get into the office at 9 a.m. Please, God, let it rain because people are not going to leave the house. I have 2 rulers with my public records. I dial both numbers. This is before like auto dialers. I dial both phones, ruler under the name, so I wouldn't lose where my track was. Whoever picked up first, right? I'm pressing release on the other phone. Boom. I take 5-7 apps on Saturdays, right? So I'm working 6 days, not going out, no bills, living at home, right? I'm hyper focused. Save $250, and some other 2 lessons in life. My dad said, okay, we're going to go find you an apartment building. He said, so get with a broker. So I got with a broker. I found a building. I still own that building till this day.
Wow.
I bought it
amazing.
I bought it in March of 2005 for $1 million even. I put down $248,000. The day of closing, I needed to bring cash to close of $270,000. I called my dad the day before. I said, Dad, I'm short 30 grand.
Did you forget about closing costs?
It was. It's funny. I was a mortgage lender.
I know. Yeah.
But it was like I even when you like, what was I doing?
You're still a human.
Yeah.
And you're still a novice, and it's still your first time.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I'm just like, but I'm like, okay. I knew I was a little bit short, but my dad will spot me. I call him up. I'm like, Dad, closing's tomorrow. He goes, I'm proud of you, son. 17 unit building, right? And he goes, that's how you move. He goes, that's how you move in life. You earn money at your job, save a little below your means, get your first investment. He goes, you just want a good investment away from having that investment, support you during the tough days. And that building, I'll tell you what happened with it during the 08 crash. So I said, Dad, I'm short like 30 grand. He goes, and? I said, you spot me? He goes, are you a man or are you a boy? It's exactly what he said to me. And I'm like, oh boy. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, what do you think that's how life works? He goes, you call daddy to spot you 30 grand? He goes, what do he's like, and he just got mad. He goes, you fancy little mortgage guys, like, you think you're just going to fast talk and just like, you're going to call daddy to give you 30 grand? He goes, that's not how life works. He goes, this is the last time you're ever going to call me with that BS, right? And I'm a good kid. Like, I'm not like a BS. And I'm like, geez. He goes, the world doesn't work that way. You better come to the table with your money, boy, right? He goes, I got you. And that moment, I'm like, damn, don't play no funny games. So I close, renovate it. I leverage that property. I buy another 30-unit property 2 years later. I own a mortgage company deal. Oh, my gosh. People listening in 2008, 2009, the worst time to be a mortgage company owner. Thank God for my parents. Thank God for my dad, right? And Mom, for helping me not blow my money, because those 2 buildings saved me during those 4 years.
They carried you.
Oh my, and more.
And more.
That's awesome. Subsidized everything.
Yeah, that's huge. Let's do this. You and I only live 3 hours away. Like, we can almost do this quarterly. This is almost like part 1 of a 3-part series. Right?
I'm sorry if I rambled, man.
And no, I love it. You're a very good storyteller.
Thank you.
So, like, we all get captivated, like, tuning in, and there's lots of lessons to be learned. And, even if it's not a lesson, sometimes we just need to hear that it's not just us, right? It's not just us that had that type of a upbringing or that experience in middle school, or, oh, wow, I too can succeed. If he's done it, why can't I?
Yeah, no doubt.
So, look, I always love having, and featuring guests of your caliber and your experience, and I love how you can articulate your story. I'm going to tease the audience. Like, fast forward, Amir goes on to get out of the call center. He no longer owns his own mortgage company, and he personally funds over $100 million a year. He has a branch of like 10 killers, and they're funding $1 billion a year, right? And now he's the chief growth officer at Lower, and he has the hottest loan officer coaching company in the market. Right. So the story,
and a great wife and daughter,
wife and an adorable daughter. Yeah. All of that. Right. And the story is literally still on chapter 10 of 20, but we do need to put a bow on this episode. Okay. We can come back and we can finish it. Yeah, right. We can do, this is part 1 of 3. All right. We can do 2 of 3.
Let's do it.
Right. Cause we basically made it up to about 08. Right, that's about where we are. We're about 08.
And that's when things get juicy.
But we need to go 08 to 19.
Okay, cool.
Because 19 to 24, there's another iteration, right? There's another.
Man.
So if this was a trilogy,
let's do it, man.
Then we can get there. But you do have 2 kick-ass live events every single year.
Yes.
Your live events are called GrowthCon. Your
Yes.
next one's going to be in April.
End of April.
In Scottsdale, Arizona.
That's right. That's
okay.
right.
Is the website up yet? Is the
Not
website
yet.
updated? Not yet.
Not yet.
So
GoCoaching.io, geocoaching.io, gocoaching.io.
Okay.
So that's where we'll post that event on
Okay.
there in the next couple weeks.
Okay, perfect. But go ahead and like mark your calendars
Yeah.
for being in Scottsdale, Arizona in April, which by the way, full disclosure, I'm not a huge fan of Arizona. I've been in January. I thought it was ugly brown desert. I've been in September. I thought it was ugly brown desert.
True.
But I went last April.
Oh yeah, spring training.
And I was like, I went for Housing Wire's The Gathering. We love that event. Love our friends over at Housing Wire. And I literally said, this is why people come to Arizona.
That's right.
Right now. You go to Arizona in the spring, it's not brown, dry, and ugly.
Oh, yeah.
It's brown. And it's green, and it's purple, and it's fuchsia, and it's pink.
Perfect weather.
Oh, and the orange sky when the sun's going down.
Yeah.
It's warm during the day. It's cold at night. Yes.
Yeah, special
Arizona
place, man.
in April is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So the event is GrowthCon. Is there anything you can tease about it, or is it still a lot of it under wraps that you can't necessarily share at this point?
Those are our 2 mega in-person events, GrowthCon, which is end of April, and it was beginning of October, right? And so the last one we had sold out in a matter of a week. And so this one's theme is going to be sell and scale, right? So we're going to really equip the audience with selling techniques, and then a lot of the bigger producers that want to scale up. We're bringing in outside guests. We can't release who they are yet, but you will definitely know who they are, right? In terms of the who, not the how, right? And so it's 2-day event, breakout sessions, a lot of energy. I'm a high tactic guy, as you know, no fluff, all stuff. We're gonna have events at night, right? It's gonna be community at its finest, man. So I hope to see everybody there.
Yeah, I hope I get the invite.
Oh, Dio, you're already, come on, bro.
We'll bring JC, we'll bring a couple mics, a couple cameras, and we'll just sit there and we'll like record live on location. GrowthCon 2025.
No, you're my
Love
boy,
it.
bro.
Amir, people want to follow you. What are your handles?
Thank you, Dio. I think so. LinkedIn. I'm about to hit 35,000 followers. I put good entrepreneurship content there every day. I can't believe how much that's taken off. So LinkedIn is just Amir Syed. Instagram. At Amir Syed. That's a lot of nuanced loan officer content.
Okay.
And then obviously Facebook is a lot of my loan officer. So just at Amir Syed.
When's your book coming out?
Oh man, we've been talking about it a lot, man. Thanks for asking, dude. That's a big thing I want to do next year. I want to leave the industry to one of the best books ever written, man. 2025
or 2026?
2025.
Write it in 25?
I'm going to write it and publish it end of the year. By the end of the year, it'll be out. Yeah, I'm going to put it out there, man.
Yeah, you put it out in the universe. 2 things have happened. Now the universe knows about it, but now I know about it.
That's right. And
you
can't go back.
Can't go back now. Awesome.
Yeah.
Amir, thank you so much for taking the time to stop by, be a guest on T-Lop. He's Amir Syed. I'm Dustin Owen. You've just tuned in to Loan Officer Podcast. Do us a favor. If this is your first time coming by and checking out our content, go to our YouTube channel. It is the Loan Officer Podcast. Subscribe. There's more content on that YouTube channel than just podcast episodes. Make sure you are downloading us on Spotify, on Apple. Give us a 5-star review and share us. Sharing is caring, not just once, not twice, but 3 times. He's Amir. I'm Dio. That is all the time we have for you today, but we do look forward to catching you on the next episode. Let's go.